Hey everybody, my name is Smitha. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a program coordinator with the Youth Leadership Institute and I'm 25. I want to pass it off to Margarita, who's going to be one of the co-facilitators for this panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Margarita Vasquez. My pronouns are she and hers. I'm a program coordinator for the Youth Leadership Institute and I am 23 years old. And I'll pass it to Socorro.
Hi, I'm Socorro. I'm a youth at YLI and my pronouns are she and hers. Pass to Yula.
Hi, I'm Yula Camera. I'm 18 years old and I'm part of the Youth Leadership Board back in Daly City. And I go by she and her.
Sakura, do you mind sharing where you go to school?
Oh yeah, I go to high school.
So, have everyone type your questions in the chat box. That way we can make sure that your questions are answered. So we'll leave time at the end so that panelists can answer them directly. So you can just leave a moment.
The audio is really bad. I can't hear. I think you could mute yourself.
I think it might be your audio.
Yeah, Smitha, I'm having a hard time hearing you as well, and I don't know if you need headset or headphones. You're soft, and then a couple words will come out very clear.
Is better?
Can you say something? Ask you to mute yourself, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Should I just over? So we've had everyone introduce themselves. Today we're going to be hearing from a couple of YLI's youth participants on campaigns they've worked on, their experiences doing youth-led advocacy, and some best practices for being an adult ally to young people. So as I said, make sure to type your questions into the chat box so we can ensure that we answer them at the end. Before we launch into the Q&A portion, we're going to have a small presentation about the work that young people have done. So just to highlight, something that's really special for today's panel with its focus on young people and young women, is that our leadership, club leadership in both Half Moon Bay and Daly City have been young women. So they really are leading the charge of a lot of the work that we're doing. So we're going to show you just a really brief presentation about who we are. So what we do is we build communities where young people and their adult allies can come together to create positive social change. And what that means is that we have to put youth development and youth leadership at the center of all of that community change work. We have 7 offices across the state of California. And in the San Mateo office, we work on a few different programs. Can I get the next slide? Sorry, so YLI, just as an org overall, really values inclusion, innovation, social justice, and community. And these are the values that drive the work that we do. And these are the things that we know that young people bring to all of the community change work that they do, is their innovative spirit, their passion for social justice, their foundation in the community, and really their empathy and inclusion because they realize that we're not free until all of us are free. So, just reiterating those values. I think the next slide actually highlights how we approach our work, which is through youth leadership development. And so that's the first step, right? That's the foundation, is we have leadership development, capacity building, training. We want to equip young people to be the advocates that they already are in their communities and just give them those tools. Things like youth-led action research are also a really important piece of our model because we know that young people have this knowledge about their community, and youth-led action research just creates kind of this actionable process for them to turn that knowledge into like findings that can be communicated for community change. And that leads into the third piece, is community campaigns. We've done a lot of work around different kinds of like policy areas. Some of those, I guess you can see on the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So some of the campaigns and areas that we've worked on include climate change, affordable housing, COVID-19 education, civic engagement, transportation equity, and substance use and mental health. And so these are kind of a wide range of different areas, but that speaks to how all of these can impact young people, their communities, and the futures of their communities as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Socorro to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Socorro. I guess just a little bit about me. I'm 16. I'm a senior at Half Moon Bay High School, and I've been part of YLI for about 3 years. Some things that I've done while being part of YLI is that I've attended many city council meetings, and I've also given public comment at those meetings. I also attended a Samtrans board meeting, which I advocated for the lowering of bus route prices. I also helped lead a town hall that was about youth mental health, and I conducted research at Half Moon Bay High School to determine the youth priorities of the city.
Hi, I'm Eula Camera. I just graduated from Westmore High School. I've been part of YLI for about a year now, and I'm currently attending CCSF, and I'm part of the Daly City YLI Leadership Board. So far, together with Daly City's YLI, we attended numerous of city council meetings regarding housing and rent issues. We've also conducted little polls throughout Westmore High School about housing issues.
Thank you. We're really excited to be able to hear from both of you because you've done some really amazing work in your respective cities in the time you've been at YLI, and in many cases before and even outside of YLI. So I guess to dive into some of the panel, I'm going to pass it to Margarita, who's going to ask the first question.
Great. Thank you so much, Smitha. Appreciate you. And we will start by doing a quick interview portion for our youth participants on the call today. And just the first question that I have for them is, what has been your experience in our YLI programs? Socorro, do you want to start us off?
My experience at YLI and the programs, they've been amazing. I've always felt heard when I was there. I always felt like I'm helping making a change in my community, which I've never felt before that. So that was always really great, and I've made some great friends there as well. So that's just a plus. Yeah.
And I'll ask you the same question, Eula. What has been your experience with our program?
Well, my experience with YLI, it's honestly been really amazing. I was able to make a ton of like amazing friends and form deep connections with like a lot of other people. YLI also helped like provide an outlet so that I could like put my passion into it. And then before YLI, I never really thought I'd have a say in like community affairs until like I joined YLI. It's like helped me realize that despite being a youth, I did really have a say, and it's overall shaped me into a better person.
Cool. Thank you very much. And then I'll go on to the next question. What can you think of a time that an adult trusted you to make a decision to lead, and how did that make you feel? Anybody? Socorro, do you want to start it off?
Well, I helped run a panel for a town hall, and that was really fun and that was really great. And then I've also just kind of helped out with a bunch of like the meetings at school. And it felt really nice to like lead something, and it kind of, even though I wasn't doing it myself, I did have like people helping me out. It really felt really nice to finally just like take like finally just like lead something, which I hadn't really had a chance to do it before, so that was really, it was really fun and I really enjoyed it.
Great, thank you. Yula, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, it's okay. Let's see. Well, it's all in the name. It's Youth Leadership Institute. So there's multiple times where we've been given so much like power to help run our own club the way we want to do it. Our advisor Rod, like he let us think of the issues that we think is like something we could like tackle, like the problems that we've tried to like solve were problems that all of us as a youth agreed on collectively, and then we've like brainstormed so many ideas as like a group of youth, so we've like done so many things.
Yeah, thank you so much for those amazing answers, and I'll pass it back to Smitha.
Thank you, Margarita. So I'm going to ask you both, what are the barriers to young people participating in advocacy and or policy change? Like, you can speak to, in general, what might be some of the barriers that young people encounter when they want to participate. Or you can also speak to like in a in a COVID-19 world, really. So feel free to speak to either before or after the pandemic. And during, sorry. Either of you can start if you feel ready.
Well, personally, I feel like there's like pretty big difference between youth voices before the pandemic and after. Like before the pandemic, I personally felt as if there were adults who claimed that they care about what the younger generation have to say, but at the end of the day, they just kind of push aside and just everything that we said, the input we had to say. Well, during the pandemic, I feel like since this generation has been really like social, like based off of social media and technology, we rely heavily on it. I feel like social media helped balance the playing field where we were able to, where youth along with like the older generations were able to speak out about like the problems that occurred throughout our society today. So yeah, like youth voices were just amplified because of the pandemic and social media.
Thank you. And Socorro, the same question.
I think a barrier that a lot of youth have with trying to like with trying to participate in like advocacy is that they don't really know how to like, I guess, start getting into it. they don't, like, at least before I joined YLI, I never really knew like how to get into it or how to participate in that. So I think that's a really big part in it, because from what I see, at least I don't really see it being advocated. Now I see it being advocated a lot because youth are really just speaking up, especially during the pandemic. But before, I hadn't really seen like how to start advocating and how to start just getting into it. So yeah.
Thank you, Socorro. So I know you both kind of started to speak to this, but I wanted to explicitly ask, like, what we can change. How can we change the problems that each of you raised? What can we do?
Well, personally, I think one of the biggest ways to solve any problem is communication. I feel like our society is like wired into like spreading awareness, but we're not really communicating with each other, trying to brainstorm like ideas. So I feel like the key is just communication.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah. And Socorro, what about you?
I think also I kind of touched on this earlier, but also just making it more well known, making it easier to find, to like learn how to do it, and like also just like what Eula said, like just communicating with people. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you both. So right now we're going to make a little bit of space for you to ask us questions. So we're going to turn the mic around to Eula and Socorro.
So the first question is, what led you to this work? Like, what led you to become like an adult ally?
Margarita, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can definitely start it off. Honestly, I think the reason why I became an adult ally is just because of my history with YLI. And I was actually started off being a youth participant with the same group that Socorro's in, but it was like the youth that I was with in school. So I think that definitely pushed me to become an adult ally. And eventually I got different positions within the YLI organization, from being a youth participant to being just like an intern, and then an assistant for a program coordinator, and eventually a program coordinator. So just seeing how, there is so many steps to becoming an adult ally, I think is really cool. And knowing that, like, even as a youth participant, I knew I always had the support of my adult allies, and I wanted to be able to do the same for the youth that I work with. So I think that was so great. And the way that it all worked out was really amazing. And I'm just so proud of being an adult ally and just really enjoying the work and wanting to be an adult ally.
I will echo a lot of what Margarita said. I think there's like a saying in advocacy in general, it's like nothing about us without us. And when I started off in advocacy, I was not advocating for like other people, I was actually advocating for myself. And that's kind of a core tenet, is like the idea of solidarity, right? Like you want to have a stake in what it is you're advocating about. And I had a stake in youth advocacy because I was and I am a young person, right? I'm a transition age youth. People define that differently, but basically, like, I became an adult ally because I was advocating for myself and my peers, and we were young people, and that was youth advocacy, you know? So that's kind of what led me to this work. And I'll say, like, without going into too much depth, that I was also like, I'm going to be like super like open here. I understand that there is stigma around mental health, so but I'll be open that I was diagnosed with depression when I was in college, and not having the services that I needed at that time, and seeing a lot of my peers struggle, like, and go to like really dark places because there were long wait times and they just couldn't get like the care that they needed for their mental health. Like, that was what propelled me into wanting to advocate, because I didn't want other people to suffer in like a system that could easily be fixed, you know, or like something that needed to be changed. So that's kind of what brought me into advocacy in the first place. And then I just kind of continued from there, and that led me to YLI.
I have another question. What do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind when becoming an adult ally?
I would say is just being aware of your surroundings. Honestly, I think it's very important to just keep the youth voice in mind at all times. You know, just as Smitha said, we are also traditional age youth, so I feel like it makes it a lot easier just to be very present in your surroundings and be very aware of just what is happening. So I think it's just always keeping youth voice in mind and making sure that you are advocating for youth. Smitha?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing to keep in mind when being an adult ally is that like you are kind of the bridge to like institutions, systems, and like the kinds of knowledge and stuff that like young people might not have access to, and that's privilege that you can then turn around and use. And so like as an adult ally, I would say the most important thing is to always be a bridge and to try to create opportunities and be a channel for opportunities as much as possible, because all young people like really need is a step up, because they already have like everything that it takes. um And then I'm not sure if we have time for one last question here. Um, so this is kind of like a question, I guess, for all of us, but we'll start with Socorro and Eula. So I guess the question would be, why would you tell your peers to join youth advocacy work?
Well, the reason why I would say that they should join youth advocacy work is that our, there's so many things wrong with our generation, our society, and what we really need now, as I said earlier, is communication. We need people to step up and talk about what they believe in, talk about the issues that we face, especially now that our generation is starting to like grow up, and we're gonna be like eventually we'll take over eventually. I feel like now is like the time to actually speak up, despite it being controversial. We just need to like step back and just find the courage to talk about the problems, face problems, just important. So youth voices matter. It's if it's like a bunch of like people talking, like it's the amount of people that actually manage to speak up. It's the fact that we actually try to speak up that matters. Even though we're youth, we do have a say. We do matter. So yeah, it's important for youth to stand up for and talk about it.
Yeah, and I would even say, you know, as you speak, it's our job as adult allies to be a megaphone to amplify your voices. So, absolutely. Socorro, what would you say for the same question?
Um, I think I would say that we kind of talking a little bit more about what Eula said. Like, it's our world, and we're gonna have to be living in it in the future. And it's and if you want to make a change now, it's better to start earlier than later, because you're gonna be living in the world. You're gonna be living. You're still gonna be living here in the next 10, 20 years. Why not make it the best world possible? And with youth advocacy, that's something that with just advocating, that's something that that's a way that you could help. That's a way that you could try doing that. So I guess that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Socorro. Yeah, you are in the process of shaping this generation and our collective future. No pressure. With that, we're gonna probably open up Q&A. We're gonna go to any questions that might be in the chat. I don't see any, but feel free to type questions in as you have them.
We actually can finish off the presentation slides and then we can go to Q&A, so then gives folks a little more time to do that. So I can go ahead and share my screen again, and then we can finish off the presentation. Oops, wrong thing. Give me 2 seconds. Awesome, there we go. So with that being said, thank you all so much for engaging the interview, and we'll move on. So just talking a little bit more about YLI and the way that we've shifted during COVID times. We are now, making sure that youth have the needs that they need, especially now since they are home and just having to do school remotely, as well as participating in our programs remotely as well via Zoom. So making sure that they have all the needs that they need during this time, and creating space for youth to share how they're doing. We make it a very big intention to have spaces at the beginning of every meeting to ensure that, to check in with youth and make sure that they are okay. And just provide spaces to continue to grow community and connect with each other. We make it also a very big priority to make sure that we are connecting with youth on a regular basis, and just shifting the work and making sure that, the work, everything is shifting at this point, and making sure that the work shift with it as well. Let me move on. Okay, cool. And with that being said, I do want to present a quick opportunity. Here we are currently having a mental health anthology going on for our youth groups. And they are submitting piece. You can submit a piece to our anthology to be featured and posted. So you will receive a $100 stipend, which is available for all youth on the County of San Mateo for a submission. If you have any questions, you can email Adam. There is the email there provided. And did you want to add anything else about this, Smitha?
No, but just look out for the very first piece in the series. It's going to be coming up soon. We are actually getting, I think, a couple questions in the chat. So, I will say, if you're interested in Help at Hand, you can learn more. There's a page about Help at Hand on the YLI website.
Great, thank you. We have also provided our contact information on this screen, and we will continue sharing it. So no worries, we will have those up.
There's a typo in your email address. I just wanted to correct that. It should say M. Vasquez. What, sorry, is that your personal?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was your YLI. My bad, okay, sorry.
Thank you, Sitha.
Part of the screen blocked. So just to be kind of transparent with everybody, Margarita and I are leaving YLI, unfortunately, at the end of this week. We're moving on to big things. Margarita, do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, I went to school to get a bachelor's in accounting, so I'll be moving on to an accounting firm in San Francisco, just utilizing my bachelor's degree.
Yeah, Margarita's amazing. And I'll be going to law school, so I'll be starting classes next month. So while we won't be with YLI, you can still ask us questions about, any of the work that we've done, any of the programs that we mentioned, right? The areas of work that we do. And you can also ask us about our journeys, if you want to connect. Those are our personal email addresses. And if you want to learn any more about like the programs themselves and to get in touch and see how you can get involved, there is the contact information for Adam. Cool. Oh, I see. Rosa Gonzalez, thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we want to go ahead and answer the Q&As?
Let's head into the Q&A. There's 2 questions waiting for the young people. So I'm just going to read them out as written. So Lysandra Gutter said, I am really impressed with you young women and your courage to lead. Do any of you think about running for public office in the future? Are you talking about the issue of youth and voting? I'll pass it to Eula and or Socorro, whoever feels ready or whoever wants to answer.
I actually don't plan on running for office sometime in the future or at all. But when it comes to voting, we do mention it during like meetings because especially now, it's really important to vote if you're at the age of like to vote. So we do mention and talk about it.
I don't also plan on running for any public office in the future, but we do talk about the issue with youth and voting. They definitely do give us resources on how to register to vote, and just resources like that. But yeah.
I guess, I mean, I don't know, Margarita, if you also might be considering running for office, or if you want to answer that question about young people and voting.
I think I'm definitely in the same boat. Maybe in the future. I think I live in Half Moon Bay, so it is a small town, and I really appreciate that. And I have worked closely with the city council, so maybe in the future, I think it could be a possibility. But yeah, and we definitely do, just as Socorro mentioned, we definitely do talk about youth voting, and we make sure that when that time comes around, we just try to either talk about it within our group or make sure that everyone within the youth group is registered to vote, and just make sure that other folks are talking about it within the same space as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out one of our colleagues, one of our fellow program coordinators, Rod Spikes, who also has done a lot of voter registration and has really worked to get the word out about the vote. But yeah, I'm not gonna pile onto that question, but I do think it's important that young women see themselves in positions of leadership, even if they don't have to run for office. You know, it's whatever you want and whatever kind of leadership you choose, but as long as you don't view that as out of the possibility. Because I mean, any one of you, like the work that you've done so far in your communities is valuable, and it's a lot more than most citizens and residents have done. So any one of you could easily run for city council if you wanted to, or anything, honestly, like no limit. And then I think there might be another question. Oh, no, we combined them. We talked
There's a
about.
question in the Q&A box.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. What is a highlight or accomplishment that you're most proud of doing advocacy work in your community? So I'll kick it to either Socorro or Eula if you want to start us off.
Well, I feel like I could say that my highest accomplishment when it comes to advocacy work is that I've attended like about 2 to 3 city council meetings about the topic of house renting issues, like renting issues, and at the end of their decision was that they would pass the policy, so we were pretty successful. So I think that was pretty much like the highlight and the biggest accomplishment of my advocacy work.
Thank you, Eula. And Socorro?
I think mine was probably when I went to a SamTrans meeting. I advocated for the lowering of the bus route prices, and I think we lowered it by 20 cents, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it really did help. And I never thought that that would actually happen, so that's probably something that I'm the most proud of while working with YLI.
And just like last time, I'll also let you answer that question, Margarita, because you've done a lot of advocacy work.
Thank you, Smitha. Honestly, I think throughout the years, there's been quite a few, just like thinking from being a youth to as well being a program coordinator. One in particular that I remember when I was a youth at Half Moon Bay High School, we surveyed like for a really long time at the Pumpkin Festival here in Half Moon Bay to ensure that the Pumpkin Festival was doing a good job of regulating alcohol consumption for youth. And we were really happy to know, like we interviewed the vendors and stuff because Pumpkin Festival in Half Moon Bay is a really large thing. It's a very big event, and we wanted to ensure that alcohol consumption among youth wasn't happening during this very festive weekend. So in the end, we were able to collect a lot of data, and that showed that there was a lot of control within the festival itself that regulated just the consumption of alcohol within youth and making sure that there wasn't any. So I think that was definitely a great thing for me and an accomplishment that I felt, because I remember realizing that I was like, okay, wow, this is really great knowing that you can collect all this data and then turn around and show it to like the city staff and them realizing like, okay, then we're doing a good job. But at the same time, like knowing that we were also a part of like making sure that everything was going well in the city of Half Moon Bay and especially in the Pumpkin Festival.
Yeah, and I just want to uplift that that's something with not just local but international impacts, because the Pumpkin Festival is attended by people from all around, right? It's huge, so that's definitely a really big accomplishment. I think that one of my biggest accomplishments probably in advocacy was from when I was in college. I guess one thing was there weren't really, they were thinking about canceling the public health major, and I was a public health major. And that didn't seem like, a big deal necessarily on the surface, but like the public health undergraduate population was a big pipeline for community work. And many of the undergrads weren't involved in like research like the grad students were, but they weren't like part of community programs. And there was that pipeline of like, students volunteering and service. And so with that, like being cut off with the undergraduate major going away, and also with, a really rigorous, amazing undergraduate program that allowed undergrads to go on to a variety of different health careers that wasn't like being a doctor, like that was really valuable. And so I kind of was thrown into that because I was part of a student group, like a public health student society. And I was president the year that they were talking about canceling the major. And so we had to hold town halls for students, and we were kind of like in talks with administration, like relaying all of that feedback. And in the end, they ended up not canceling the major, which was like a really big victory, but it was like a very real possibility that they were going to cancel that. So I think that was probably one of my biggest accomplishments. And thank you for that question. We do actually have a lot more time because I think we sailed through some of the earlier questions. So I just want to open up this opportunity for people to ask any other questions. You can use the Q&A or the chat boxes. We are here. You can ask us questions about our experiences in advocacy or as young people, or about our future plans or any of that stuff. I'll give everybody a moment if they're thinking about asking any questions.
There is a question in the chat box. It says, how do you sign up to participate in YLI?
You want to take that question, Margarita?
Yeah, I definitely can. So as mentioned, as Smitha mentioned before, we do have multiple regions that we work in. So I guess it really depends if it's within the county of San Mateo. We work with the Westmore High School in Daly City. We also have a youth group, particularly in Half Moon Bay, and we have multiple in Half Moon Bay. And I believe we have another one, South City, correct, Smitha?
We have a tobacco focused group.
So I think a great way to, in order to figure out if there is a youth group, a YLI youth group close by, you could also check out our website. And it will just show you different regions within the county that we have youth groups. As I said, we mainly have been focusing on those. The Help at Hand youth group, however, is another youth group that's kind of in the making and building up. So we are going through the process of also recruiting more youth. So you can check out our website and go under Help at Hand and email one of us as well. That could be another way to get in contact with us.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Ashley. And I'll put Adam's contact information again in the chat box for everyone. If you're interested in getting in touch with or participating in programs, I think right now most of our programs are with schools. But if if we're able to get in touch with you, and if there's a way that you can participate even if you're not a student at the school, we can talk about that. And like Margarita said, there's also the Help at Hand youth group, which is countywide. And so if you are in San Mateo County and you're a young person, I think, what is it, between 15 and 25, then we would love to get in touch with you, because that group, we're also recruiting, I think, for that. So there's two questions here that I want to make sure we answer. One is, what are your future career goals? And then there was another question that I think might have been a follow-up to the previous, which is, are there any prerequisites to join other than age? I can answer the age one really quickly, and then we can talk about the career goals question. I don't think there are any prerequisites to join other than age, but it helps to be living in the communities that we're working with, because we already have partnerships with some of those schools. So that's not a prerequisite per se, but that's kind of where our programs are located. But like we said, you can get in touch with us if you're interested in being involved, and chances are there's a way you can still participate, because we're on Zoom now. So now everything's virtual. So yeah, thank you for that question. So as far as, folks' future career goals, Yula or Socorro, does either of you want to start it off?
Well, as of now, I'm just trying to get by, like, my general ed classes versus for like community college. But I'm like trying to figure out which major I want to major in. So I've been debating if it should be like I should like get a career in like neonatal care or like the reproductive health. But then I remember being interested in like Planned Parenthood too. So things like that, it's like something I'm passionate about. So yeah.
That's awesome. Sounds like reproductive justice work is like kind of your niche, your thing. That's really cool. Thank you, Yula. How about you, Socorro?
I want to be a psychologist when I'm older. So I've always been really interested in how the brain works and just mental health. So mental health. So yeah, that's what I want to be.
That's dope. And I know you did a lot of mental health work also in your time at YLI. So yeah, it's exciting. It makes sense you'd want to be a psychologist. Margarita, I mean, I know you already shared kind of about your first your next role, but if you want to talk about like your career goals in general.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So I think while I really helped with like opening my eyes to a lot of social justice. So that was definitely something that I was very much interested once I started the conversation about social justice in my own youth group. And another thing that I noticed within my community is noticing that financial literacy is not, it's not very accessible. So that's why I went ahead and, got a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in accounting to better understand that financial world. And my hope and dream is to come back to my own community and be able to open a nonprofit or work with a nonprofit that provides that financial literacy to communities of color and low-income communities and just everyone, and make it sure it's accessible, even to youth, because I know growing up, I was never taught how to, make sure that I'm within my budget, or just learning how to budget money, or just making sure that I'm how to even open a bank account. So there's just little things that I do want to obviously be able to, that I know now that I would love to teach others.
Yes, I just want to give you snaps because that's a perfect example of being what your community needs, right? So that's really amazing. I mean, you all know I'm going to law school, but as far as my future career goals, I'm thinking a lot about how law can be used as a tool in human rights and especially in health, because we're seeing in public health that a lot of different issues, including racism, including the criminal justice system, including the environment, they all come back to impact public health. And so I think through health and public health law, I think that's a vehicle to talk about all of these different issues and how they impact us. So yeah, that's what I hope to do in a really loose sense. Yeah, and thank you all for the affirmations in the chat. Thank you, Nirmala. Thank you, Tanya. You know, we really appreciate you all taking the time to come hear about our experiences, especially around young people and their experiences, because young people are shaping the generation and our current our current world, and they're going to lead the charge. So I don't know if you all want to share if you have any closing thoughts, or if anyone has any other questions that they want to ask. We still do have a few minutes. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, I guess if there are no questions, we can probably wrap at this time. We have Adam's email address there in the comments if you're interested, and maybe Margarita, if you don't mind putting up the last slide with our contact info again. If people want to reach us, you can always ask us questions. Thank you, Lalo. Thank you, Lysandra. Thank you. So yes, there's our contact information. You can reach out to us. And if you have questions for Eula or Socorro, you can share those with us as well, and we'll make sure that those questions reach them. Thank you, Martha. Thank you. Okay. All right. We appreciate everybody joining us. That is the end of our panel. If you want to take down this contact info real quick, this is about to close, so grab that screen grab if you need to. Thank you so much, and hope you all